After her declaration, a factory worker father apologized quickly. After saying so, my stepmother spilled tea on my dad's face with a nasty grin. Next to her, she laughed. I was surprised my stepfather didn't chastise her. The suit my dad diligently cleaned for this occasion quickly developed a stain. It was a relief that the drink was almost cold, easing burn worries. In shock, I gave my dad a napkin as Tom panicked to dry his father-in-law suit. Tom laughed at his parents' absurdity despite fearing about injuries. Despite the pandemonium, my dad stayed motionless, stood up, and pointed at them, saying, his unaccustomed sturdiness surprised me. He took my hand and we escaped the chaos. Tom yelled at his parents before joining us. Dad-in-law, I'm sorry. My parents will apologize later. He apologized, but my dad said no need in a somber tone. We finished them. He touched Tom's shoulder as we left the O'Connor's chaos. Let me introduce myself. My name is 26-year-old office worker Yvonne Warner. My single father raised me after my mother died early, and I appreciated his job and family commitment. My manufacturing manager father attended all my school functions, even if he had to rush back to work. In college, I met sweet, truthful, and polite Tom, 2 years my senior. Despite his fame, he accepted my confession, but he didn't address his parents' relationship. Tom lived alone but visited his parents, often looking fatigued. I was proud that Tom prioritized me in our relationship. When the time came to present him to my dad, I was nervous and excited. The fact that my dad and Tom got along surprised me, and I was relieved. But Tom's unusual joy after the encounter surprised me, and he avoided inquiries about it. Since Tom and I seemed to get along with my dad, I worried that Tom's sentiments weren't as favorable as he stated. Tom requested a critical talk a few days later due to his anxiousness. Meeting Tom at the agreed-upon cafe, I was nervous about discussing our previous visit with my dad. I arrived at the cafe to see Tom seated with a dismal countenance through the glass. I greeted him cheerfully, despite my concern. Tom, did you wait long? As I approached, I murmured gently. Startled by my touch on his shoulder, Tom exclaimed, You scared me. After a deep breath, he continued, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. Please have a seat. Sitting across from Tom, I ordered from the waiter, my concern mounting as Tom's downcast expression persisted. Hoping to encourage him to share his thoughts, I spoke up, Hey Tom, what's bothering you so much? Is there something wrong with my dad? Tom, taken aback by the direct question, denied any issue with my dad, stating, Absolutely not. I respect your dad. It's just that he trailed off, avoiding eye contact. Sensing the need to delve deeper, I sighed and pressed him. If you're worried about something, I want to know what's on your mind. Tom took a deep breath, as if preparing himself, and began to disclose a shocking revelation. According to him, his parents were judgmental and lacked class, constantly interfering in his life. When he introduced a girlfriend, his parents would criticize her on the spot, leading to tearful breakups. Tom desired to marry me but was troubled by the prospect of involving his parents in our marriage. Assuring him that we didn't have to include them in our union, I suggested enduring their presence during the wedding formalities. Reminding him that my dad liked him, I thought the matter was settled, but Tom had more to share. He revealed that when he met my dad, he was surprised by the stark contrast to his own parents. Expressing a desire to become the son of such a great man, Tom shared his dilemma about marriage. While he was pleased that my dad liked him, he couldn't decide whether his parents should also become his in-laws. Tom brightened momentarily but sighed deeply afterward. In a moment of realization, Tom looked up and apologized. He proposed a unique solution. When we meet his parents for our marriage, could my dad come along? Tom hoped that the presence of someone so respectable might eventually influence his parents positively. I agreed to discuss it with my dad, but I couldn't help expressing my wish that Tom had approached the conversation differently. Understanding his misstep, Tom quickly apologized and then, with newfound determination, formally proposed marriage to me. Who was initially hesitant, I approached him with Tom when he formally asked for my hand in marriage. After obtaining my father's agreement, Tom and I arranged a date to meet his parents. On the appointed day, dressed in our best attire, we stood at the front door of Tom's family home, preparing to meet his parents for the first time. Given the unsettling stories I had heard about Tom's parents, my nerves were understandably on edge. My father, attempting to lighten the mood, encouraged us not to be too tense, assuring that Tom's parents were just overly concerned. His supportive pat on the back eased my anxiety slightly. When Tom rang the doorbell, there was no response, causing a momentary panic. Tom rang again. But still there was silence. Not wanting to create a bad impression, Tom excused himself and entered the house first, leaving my father and me exchanging concerned glances. After what seemed like an eternity, Tom reappeared, looking flustered. Before I could inquire about the delay, He made excuses with a forced smile, promising us they would be ready soon. My father sighed in exasperation, and I couldn't shake the growing worry that this incident might jeopardize our wedding plans. Finally, Tom ushered us inside, where his parents awaited us. However, their demeanor was peculiar. His mother greeted us while his father seemed disinterested, looking away. Despite the tense atmosphere, I decided to proceed with the introductions. Tom, regaining composure, introduced both my parents and me. Despite the warmth of his thoughtful introduction, his parents sneered, and the atmosphere remained strained. In an awkward turn of events, Tom's mother splashed tea on my father, staining the soup he had meticulously cleaned for the occasion. Shocked, I offered my dad a handkerchief while Tom panically tried to wipe off the tea stains. His parents, laughing in response, only fueled Tom's anger. My father, standing up, pointed at them and declared, "Then I'll ruin your company." A tone and statement I had never heard from him before. Taking my hand, he left the house, leaving Tom's parents in the wake of Tom's scolding. Returning to our house with Tom, my father changed clothes, and Tom earnestly apologized for the incident. I could hear my dad's troubled voice during their conversation. Although I was shocked by Tom's parents' actions, I knew they wouldn't be easy to get along with. Seated on the living room sofa, clenching my fists, I replayed the event in my mind, seething at the insult directed at my dad. When my dad and Tom finished changing, Tom immediately apologized to me, almost bowing down, expressing regret for not anticipating such behavior from his parents. His sincerity was evident, and he didn't even ask for forgiveness, feeling the need to apologize as well. I took Tom's hand as he kneeled on the floor, expressing my regret for suggesting the meeting without fully understanding the situation. Unexpectedly, the situation took a serious turn, and I felt compelled to apologize to my father for the unintended consequences of my thoughtless suggestion. His troubled expression and shrunk shoulders conveyed the difficulty in addressing the situation. Determined to understand the gravity of my dad's threat, I sought clarification. "Dad, was what you said true? Are you really going to ruin their company?" To my question, my dad glanced at Tom and nodded firmly, affirming his intent. My father, the CEO of a renowned local enterprise, revealed that their business was already struggling. As the factory manager and CEO, he had started as a worker in the very factory. Sacrificing his dream of becoming a painter to raise me alone after my mother's passing, he worked tirelessly and climbed the corporate ladder through several promotions. Eventually, he took over as the CEO when the former CEO retired. During our recent visit to Tom's family home, we discovered that one of the subsidiaries managed by Tom's father, my father-in-law, belonged to my dad's company. Unfortunately, Tom's parents' prejudices and Tom's mother's premature actions prevented this from being clarified, leading to the present situation. My father explained that his company faced management difficulties, contemplating downsizing without resorting to layoffs. Regret was evident in his words as he considered the impact on his employees. After Tom's serious conversation with my father, he proposed closing down the subsidiary where Tom's parents worked. Concerned about the consequences for Tom's parents, my father questioned if Tom was okay with it. Tom, resolute and having cut ties with his parents, expressed a desire for them to reflect on their actions. Despite the difficulty, he requested permission to get engaged with me. Moved by Tom's earnestness, I also pleaded with my father to allow our engagement. My father, crossing his arms, pondered Tom's words. Despite the recent incident, he eventually gave his approval, setting a condition related to Tom's parents being company executives. My father demanded to know Tom's plan for the employees and made it clear that our marriage would be off if Tom couldn't handle this responsibly. A few days later, Tom presented a plan to my father for his father's company's employees. He had arranged a meeting with my father to discuss possible job placements for all the employees. Tom showed genuine concern for the transition and offered to work for free until they were settled and producing results. He expressed his eagerness to compensate for any shortcomings with his work and salary, and once settled, to re-engage with me. Tom, demonstrating his earnestness, saw himself as partly responsible for his company's collapse and wished to be a positive force in the situation. Upon returning home, I discovered that our marriage would be delayed due to an unavoidable circumstance. When I greeted my father, he expressed, "Welcome back, Ivan. You heard right. I'm sorry for deciding such an important thing on my own, but I thought it wouldn't be fair if I were the only one happy." I seized the opportunity to propose working in the company with Tom, offering to work for free. I insisted that my father should accept Tom's proposal. Despite Tom's attempts to dissuade me, I desperately begged my father, who initially remained silent. After repeated pleas, he uncrossed his arms and quietly nodded. Meanwhile, Tom's parents had yet to apologize. My father seemed to have been waiting for them, but the time had passed. He began preparations to take over Tom's father's company. Time passed, and the day arrived when the company collapsed. Tom's parents summoned us to their home, where a crowd of former employees protested the company's closure. They accused us of being the root of all evil and blamed me for seducing Tom and ingratiating myself with my father.
Despite the accusations, Tom attempted to calm the former employees, explaining the situation and offering new job placements. Ignoring his parents' outbursts, Tom apologized for the inconvenience caused and promised to work with dedication. The former employees, reassured by Tom's efforts, began leaving relieved and grateful. As they departed, my father promised to inform them of the details later. In the aftermath, Tom's parents continued to fuss about their predicament. Tom sighed in exasperation at their blame shifting, expressing concern about losing their house used as collateral. Despite their pleas, Tom's parents were met with indifference, as the former employees had already heard the truth from Tom and disregarded the parents' desperate appeals. My father also ignored their words, and the former employees left relieved, leaving Tom's parents to confront the consequences of their actions. "I don't care what you think. You got what you deserved, so it can be helped." "Why don't you learn a little remorse?" my father reprimanded Tom's parents, who seemed oblivious to our scolding. Their insistence drove me to lose my patience. "Don't you simply keep bothering Tom by bragging about being company owners and just care about titles? Didn't that cause it?" My statements left his parents dumbfounded and eager to respond. But my father's resolute action stopped it. He stated that they could not discuss more. "Business owners should be accountable. You should finish your last assignment well." Without a response, Tom's parents were chastised and silenced. We departed without them. Finally, Tom's parents lost everything: the firm, house, and land. They left former employees without promises and avoided accountability. After losing everything, they contacted Tom. A factory worker father apologized swiftly. Stepmother dumped tea on Dad's face with a wicked smirk after saying so. Next to her, she laughed. I was astonished my stepfather didn't chastise her. The suit my dad meticulously cleaned for this occasion stained rapidly. It was a comfort that the drink was virtually cold. Lessening burn concerns. As Tom raced to dry his father-in-law's suit, I offered my dad a napkin in disbelief. Tom smiled at his parents' ridiculousness despite injury fears. No matter the chaos, my dad got up and pointed at them, saying, his unaccustomed sturdiness astonished me. He seized my hand and we escaped turmoil. Tom shouted at his parents before joining us. "Sorry, Dad-in-law. My folks will apologize later." Despite his apology, my dad responded no in a solemn tone. We finished. As we left the O'Connor's pandemonium, he stroked Tom's shoulder. "Introduce me. Yvonne Warner, 26, is an office worker. After my mother died young, my single father raised me. I valued his work and family dedication. My manufacturing manager father attended all my school events, even if he had to rush back to work. Tom, 2 years my senior, was kind, honest, and courteous in college. He accepted my confession, but didn't discuss his parents' relationship despite his prominence. Tom typically looked exhausted when visiting his parents alone. I was glad Tom emphasized me in our relationship. I was scared and thrilled to see my dad. The fact that my dad and Tom got along shocked and reassured me. But Tom's odd satisfaction after the incident astonished me, and he avoided questions. Since Tom and I got along with my dad, I worried his feelings weren't as positive as he said. Tom sought a critical chat a few days later owing to anxiety. Meeting Tom at the agreed-upon cafe, I was hesitant to mention our prior encounter with my dad. Tom was sitting with a sad face behind the cafe glass when I arrived. I welcomed him joyfully despite my worry. Did Tom wait long? I mumbled as I neared, or aid. Tom coldly rejected them after cutting relations. They were likely in jail, and we heard nothing from them. Even if they left, they owed past employees, therefore the situation was serious. My father's firm hired Tom and myself after we resigned our jobs. Working for free in the first month off our savings was promised. We met a former Tom's parents' employee at work. The employee, eager to shake our hands at the new position, thanked my father for giving them an opportunity, Tom for securing the job, and myself. Despite forgetting the event, I helped the guy carry goods. After expressing appreciation, the former employee left, vowing to work hard. Emboldened by his comments, we rushed to my father's office, where he welcomed to us. Your salary for the last months, he said, handing us 6 large envelopes. It required many envelopes since it couldn't fit. He persisted despite our shock and inability to comprehend. Your efforts energized the squad. They continually thanked and cared about you. I couldn't underpay such great workers. Our performance has increased greatly. Sincerely thanks. We embraced and sobbed after hearing this, struck by the compassion. What my father added was much better. I admire Tom's leadership. Would you marry my daughter if you're okay? Overjoyed, Tom cried and bowed to me and my father. I cried with Tom in my arms. So we married. We lived joyfully every day while working at my father's firm, improving our skills and contributing more. As I prepared for maternity leave, our time at the firm was winding down. Tom exclaimed, "You scared me," as I stroked his shoulder. My father, Tom, our co-workers, and I were excited about our kid. Following a deep breath, he apologized. Not to surprise. Sit down. When I ordered from the waiter opposite from Tom, his sorrowful countenance frightened me. I asked, "Hey Tom, what's wrong to start him talking? Has my dad a problem?" The direct question astonished Tom, who said, "No problem with my dad." "Honor your dad, simply put my..." He ceased, avoiding eye contact. I grumbled and demanded more details. "Let me know your worries." Tom breathed, ready to tell a shocking fact. He called his parents judgmental and uninformed. He's always interrupted. Parents would promptly criticize his fiancée, prompting terrible breakups. Tom wanted to marry me but concerned about his parents. We didn't have to include them, but I suggested keeping them at the ceremony. Reminding him that my dad liked him helped, but Tom had more to say. Meeting my dad surprised him since he was different from his parents. Tom wanted to be the son of a renowned guy and his wife. He was delighted my dad liked him, but he couldn't decide if his parents should be his in-laws. Tom grinned slightly before grunting deeply. Tom became aware and apologized. An innovative solution was proposed. Could my dad join us for his parents' wedding? Tom thought a good person would help his parents. I told my dad, but I wish Tom had handled things better. Tom apologized for his error and proposed again. I proposed to him with Tom, who seemed dubious. After my father consented, Tom and I met with his folks. To meet Tom's parents, we waited at the front door in our best clothing. I felt uneasy about Tom's parents' terrifying stories. My father said Tom's parents were worried to calm us. I calmed down after his back touch. When Tom rang the doorbell, no one replied, alarming him. Tom called again, but no one answered. Tom excused himself and entered first, worrying my father and me. After what felt like forever, Tom was agitated. Before I asked about the delay, he apologized with a phony grin and promised delivery shortly. My father groaned in annoyance, and I worried this would disrupt our wedding preparations. Finally, Tom took us to his parents. They behaved strangely. His father glanced away as his mother welcomed us. I began introductions despite the strain. Tom relaxed and introduced my parents and me. His courteous introduction was mocked by his parents, creating tension. My father's meticulously cleaned soup was ruined by Tom's mother's tea. Shocked, I offered my dad a handkerchief as Tom quickly removed tea spots. Tom was furious at his parents laughing. My father arose and shouted, "I'll ruin your firm." Never has he talked this way. After Tom's punishment, he went with my hand, leaving Tom's parents. My father changed clothes when he got home with Tom. Tom really apologized. I heard my dad's anxious voice during their conversation. I was surprised by Tom's parents' antics, but I knew they wouldn't get along. My palms gripped on the living room sofa as I thought of insulting my dad. Tommy apologized and almost bowed to me when my dad and Tom changed. Regretted not anticipating such behavior from his parents. He apologized without asking for pardon, displaying sincerity. Tom kneeled on the floor as I apologized for starting the meeting without understanding. Unexpectedly, things worsened. I apologized to my father for my foolish decisions and unintended consequences. His worried face and shrinking shoulders indicated his struggles. I sought clarification for my dad's warning. "Dad, was your statement true? Are you ruining their business?" My dad nodded at Tom, confirming his plan. Dad, the CEO of a well-known local corporation, acknowledged their business was collapsing. He was a manufacturing worker before becoming CEO and manager. He abandoned his painting career to raise me alone after my mother's death and worked hard and was promoted numerous times. After his predecessor retired, he became CEO. During our recent visit to Tom's family home, we discovered that my father-in-law, one of his subsidiaries, worked for my dad. Tom's parents' prejudices and mother's early behaviors prevented this from being explained, resulting in the current situation. Dad stated his firm considering cutting without layoffs because of management concerns. He regretted the impact on personnel. After a serious conversation with my father, Tom recommended closing his parents' subsidiary. Concerned about Tom's parents, my father inquired whether he was okay. Tom, stubborn and distant from his parents, questioned their behavior. He suggested we get engaged despite challenges. Tom's candor inspired me to propose to my father. My father crossed his arms and considered Tom's words. He approved on the condition that Tom's parents be business executives, notwithstanding the earlier event. My father wanted Tom's employee plan and threatened to break our marriage if he couldn't handle it. Tom presented a strategy to his father's company's employees days later. He and my father discussed all worker job assignments. Tom wanted the transition to succeed and offered free work until they were productive. He wanted to reconcile with me and fix employment and financial concerns. Tom, sincere, considered himself partly responsible for his company's failure and wanted to help. After returning home, I learned that unavoidable occurrence would delay our marriage. Yes, my dad said, welcome back. Even sorry for making such a big decision alone, but I thought it wouldn't be fair if I was the only one pleased. I offered to work for free with Tom at the firm. I recommended my father accept Tom's offer.
Tom tried to stop me, but I pleaded my father, who was silent. Uncrossing his arms, he nodded gently after repeated pleadings. Tom's parents hadn't apologized. My father seemed to be waiting, but it was too late. He prepared to take over Tom's father's business. Finally, the firm folded. Tom's parents invited us to their house, where former employees protested the company's closing. They accused us of causing everything bad and blamed me for courting Tom and wooing my father. Despite claims, Tom tried to soothe the ex-employee, clarifying the situation and proposing new jobs. Tom apologized for the disruption and pledged to work hard, ignoring his parents' rants. Tom's efforts comforted former employees, who left relieved and thankful. My father promised to explain later as they left. Tom's parents fretted over their situation afterward. Tom groaned in frustration at their blame shifting and worried about losing their collateral house. Tom's parents' urgent pleadings were ignored since the former workers had already heard the truth from Tom. My father ignored their statements, and the former workers went relieved, leaving Tom's parents to face their deeds. Your opinion doesn't matter. Just as you deserved, it may be helped. Why don't you feel sorry? Tom's parents looked unaffected by my father's scolding. My patience went out owing of their insistence. Do you talk about corporate ownership but only care about titles? Didn't that cause it? I stunned his parents, who prepared to respond. But my father's tenacity stopped it. No more talk, he said. Business owners, be responsible. Finish the last duty well. Tom's parents were warned to stop talking, left without them. Finally, Tom's parents lost everything. Home, land, business. They avoided responsibilities and breached promises to former employees. They asked Tom for aid after losing everything. Tom discarded them cruelly after splitting up. We heard nothing from them in jail. It was crucial since they owed previous workers even if they left. Tom and I worked for my father's firm after departing. We were promised free employment in the first month from our funds. Work introduced us to Tom's parents' former employee. The new hire thanked my father, Tom, and myself for the opportunity and handshake. Even though I forgot, I carried goods for them. After gratitude, the former employee left, vowing hard work. His praise inspired us to run to my father's office, where he welcomed us. He gave us 6 enormous envelopes containing your income from recent months. Multiple envelopes were needed since it didn't fit. We were amazed and confused, but he persisted. Your inputs helped the team. Their appreciation and care persisted. I couldn't underpay skilled workers. Our performance improved. Sincerely thanks. After hearing this, we hugged and sobbed in compassion. My dad's contribution was better, like Tom's management. Will you marry my daughter? Overjoyed. Tom bowed and cried before my father and me. I cried holding Tom. Got married. My father's firm was fun every day as we improved and contributed. Our firm was closing as I prepared for maternity leave. My father, Tom, co-workers, and I eagerly awaited our child.